had a gentleman called me up. He was already a franchisee of 4 different concepts. And he called me up and said, hey, I want to buy my daughter a franchise. Let's look at getting her a UPS store. And I said, well, we could do that. But what young lady do you know that is excited to go to work at a UPS store every day? None that I know. I mean, being a business owner, I get it. But if we're doing this, let's pick something you're going to enjoy as well.
In the franchise industry, there's a truth that often goes unspoken. Some franchise consultant groups lack value. However, the right consultants can be incredibly impactful in a positive way. That's not my quote. That's from franchise consultant Chris Parkinson, the franchise guy on LinkedIn, and it perfectly sets the tone for today's conversation. Because here's the reality. Most people don't hate brokers. They hate being sold to, especially when the very thing they've been sold turns out to be a terrible return on their investment. I'm Genevieve McDaniel, founder of Franchise Reality Check, where we focus on franchise education before you buy. Today's conversation is not an attack on franchise brokers. It's a real, honest look at a part of the industry that most buyers don't fully understand until they're already in it. And to have that conversation, I wanted someone who approaches this differently. Dan Collins, certified franchise executive and founder of Franchisee First Advisors, has spent over 30 years in franchising and has built a reputation for actually putting franchisees first, not just saying it. Dan, welcome to Franchise Reality Check.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. And now I know you and I have a pretty long history in franchising, strangely enough.
True.
And so I wanted to start this with a little trip down memory lane for us. And so years ago, you may or may not remember this, but we were at a franchise trade show in Chicago and a couple of guys walked up to us, very relaxed, almost too relaxed for the environment. They just didn't seem to fit. See, you're remembering exactly.
About. Yes.
I didn't know who they were at the time, but you explained that they were third-party franchise brokers that were working with a well-known network. And I'll be honest, that moment has stuck with me all these years. And it wasn't because of what they said, but it was because of how they showed up. Do you remember what they were wearing?
It looked like they just got done watching Woodstock concerts. And then, flip-flops and tie-dyed shirts. And one was like unbuttoned to his belly, I think. But yeah, I remember those are franchise brokers.
Yeah, the flip-flops got me, and the cut-off shorts, the shirts half button. It was
very
like
casual, yes.
Right. They just looked out of place. So it was like, they look like they're headed to the beach, not walking a franchise trade show floor. And whether that's fair or not, that image shaped my early perception of brokers, honestly. So I'm hoping today you can help upgrade that impression a little bit.
Okay. Well, I think I've already done the homework because, I've been a solo broker representing franchisees and potential franchisees for the last year and a half. And I know you know my background. So what I do is what a broker is. What those guys did, they've probably done a deal or two. I'll tell you, there's, thousands of brokers out there, franchise brokers. I see it from being on LinkedIn. I'm in LinkedIn every day. A lot of my early business came from LinkedIn, and then of course, repeat clients and referrals to their friends. But that's how I got most of my business in the beginning. And then I see all these people that want to connect with me, and they say they're franchise experts. And I'm like, all right, well, I've been doing this for 40 years now, and I don't know you. What franchise expert are you? I never heard your name. And then I look down their profile on LinkedIn, and they've never worked once in franchising. So what happened is they just signed up to be a franchise consultant and paid a fee and took a weekend training class or a couple of classes. And now they're consultants. It doesn't bother me. It's other than I don't want the majority of people thinking that's what a consultant is, because you don't get to be a consultant just because you say it and you read a book or took a class. I have 25 years of operations experience and then 20 years almost of development experience. So recruiting franchisees and helping them investigate franchising as an investment mod. And everything I know about franchising is critical to someone's potential success. And there's no way that those people with the limited experience they have can give the same kind of guidance that I give or that I would expect anyone to give someone when you say you're an expert at something.
So you kind of already touched on the hard stuff. We're going to get into the whole qualifications behind a franchise consultant or broker, if you will, a little bit later. But so before we get into that stuff, though, I want to start here. So you've been in franchising for decades. You've worked on the franchisor side. You've helped award territories. You've seen wins and failures. So what did you see early on that made you say, I'm not going to operate like everyone else in this space?
Well, first, when I was in operations, and I still remember this way back in the day, I was a store opener. I was a trainer. So I met this guy from Knoxville, Tennessee. He was like the mayor of Knoxville kind of guy. That was the profile avatar. Super nice guy, super successful. And he came in and he was not an ideal franchise candidate knowing what I know now, just because he was an idea guy that couldn't really be wrapped up and get to follow the system. When you're too entrepreneurial, that works against you in franchising. Franchising, you're buying a set of systems and then the support for those systems. Most successful franchisees that I know follow those systems. Well, this gentleman really impressed me, man. He didn't build our usual cookie cutter building. He built it all out of brick, and it looked like I was pulling up to a church when I went there to do the training. I was amazed. This guy is the king. He spent $2 million building this thing, which is obviously by far the top end of item 7. I didn't even know what item 7 was back then when I was a trainer. But I was just so impressed. This building is amazing. And oh, wow. And he told me, he said, all my friends are going to know this is my place. So I needed to make it look great. A year later, he was out of business because the business model didn't support a $2 million build out. You have to pay that money back. So it was unfortunate. Its time has come and gone because, of course, it was just rotisserie chicken. Still to this day, Kenny, the best chicken ever. But it was a great business, and he was probably a great business person. He was obviously very successful, whatever he was doing, but he didn't follow the systems and follow the recommendations, and that worked against him. So I was like, if that guy can go out of business, man, this could happen to anybody. And then, and that was no fault of the brand. Brand did everything they did except really insist on following the specs and let it get out of control. So they could have prevented that. But then I saw a lot of people just lose their life savings because either the brand wasn't set up for success, the business model just didn't work. It was just some guy that thought they had a great idea and I built the goose that laid the golden egg and now Mr. Popular and I'm selling it to everybody. And then he's got either the business model didn't work from the get-go or he's got no support and no knowledge of how to do this. He's got nobody in the corporate office to back up what he's selling. I mean, I tell franchisees or potential franchisees when I meet with them, you need to have 4 things before I would even consider investigating whether I would present this brand to somebody. Number 1 is it has to be a concept that has legs. I want to see something that's going to be around for at least 10 years because that's the length of the franchise agreement. Then number 2, it has to have great leadership that has done this before successfully because that's who I would be handing these people off to. And this, I feel it as a personal responsibility to help these people be successful. That's what I do. That's what every consultant should do. Number 3, it has to have great operations and support for that operations because they're going to onboard you, train you, get you up, open, and then support you afterwards. And you need to be good at that. And then number 4 is you have to have great marketing as well because they need to get people in your door. That's part of the brand. Once they get to you or once you get to their door, if it's a service concept, now it's your responsibility to keep them as a client.
So that's kind of, I guess, what you mean when you say franchisee first. That's the name of your business. You've been running this for the last year and a half. So you really emphasize that the franchisee has to come first in this business model or it's just not going to be successful.
Well, I'll tell you why I came up with that exact name. Because when I was young, I was naive. I thought that every franchisor had the franchisee's best interest as their first priority. Because that makes franchising very simple for everyone. I mean, if your franchisees are happy, high volume, successful, profitable, everything else just kind of happens. That's the engine to franchising. Happy, successful franchisees that are profitable. I don't have to spend a dime to get my phone to ring or my emails to light up because they're talking about me to other people. And that word of mouth is going to get some interest going. When I was in charge of the franchisees operations wise, of course we had, great teams that would support them operationally. But when it came to those difficult conversations, I was the one who had to have it with the franchisees. And I never once looked down at my caller ID and cringed, because I knew I always did the right thing for the franchisees. They could never say I didn't do what I said I was going to do, or I didn't do what was in their best interest. I've had some difficult, frank conversations with people when I had to say, listen, we're going to have some real talk right now. I have to let you know, I can't understand why you spent money to build 2 of these things when you're not even paying attention to them. And now you're telling me you're disappointed with the performance. So am I. I would be disappointed if I was you. So I would ask them, for example, I had a gentleman that did this and I said, all right, well, what are these 4, 5 top KPIs for the business? And he didn't know them. So I said, all right, we'll go ahead and log into the computer and, let's look at them together. He didn't even know his login to the computer. That's what I call a passive franchise investor. That's 100% passive. You're going to lose your money.
So is that maybe an opportunity for the franchisor to kind of help that franchisee, rather than assume that the franchisee comes in knowing these basic business things? Maybe that's an opportunity for franchisors to jump in and do a little of that basic education for people. If they're going to sign them up and take their franchise fee, then, why not put them through a course like that if it's needed?
I agree. That is the training. That's the training that was done. And he came down and went through the training at the corporate office, which is where my office was. So I saw him do it. The unfortunate part was he never did anything after that other than get these things open and hire managers. You can't just trust managers to take care of it like you would take care of it. They don't own it. They don't care. I asked him those top 5 KPIs, and then he came back and said, I just, my plate is full doing my other job and I live 30 minutes away. And I said, well, listen, I got 178 franchisees I supervise and I live 7 states away. And I just told you what was wrong with your business. And I didn't even log into the computer. I don't call it passive. I call it, I don't even like semi-passive because it's got the word passive in it. I want you to be an active investor. I call it the engaged investor model. So, my franchisees typically aren't the ones out there, under the sink fixing the plumbing or out there cutting the grass or whatever. My franchisees hire the people, set the culture, incentivize those people to hit the KPIs that are important to make the business successful. And then when they hit those KPIs, here's the operations tip: pay them bonuses. Makes them do it over and over and over again. That's as close as you're going to get to that semi-absentee. I hate even saying the word.
I was just going to say that sounds an awful lot. Semi-absentee is all over the place right now.
When people say semi-absentee in their advertisements, that's immediate red flag for me. I'm like, now I'm going to have to dive in deeper, because if you're telling me, and thankfully, there's been a movement for the last probably, I'd say for the last 4 or 5 years, where I've seen brands now realizing, because now they kind of reaped what they sowed. And now they had a bunch of disgruntled franchisees that probably lost a lot of money, left the system, said bad things, lawsuits, all that kind of stuff. And now they're realizing, well, if we just go a little slower and actually help these franchisees be successful, we can make a lot of money. And then eventually this business is going to be worth a lot. To get back to originally why I called my company that, I wanted to make sure I have the franchisee's best interest at heart. I always did, as I was vice president, senior vice president, whatever. And I took it as a responsibility. I always said, a lot of people celebrate when franchisees sign the agreement and write the check and all. And sure, it's exciting. We have somebody new in the system. I used to work for a company. They rang a bell and everyone got up and applauded. And I'm like, this is the beginning. This isn't the time to celebrate yet. All this is this big document that just got signed and this check. Now this is a big responsibility. That's all this is. Now they're not even open yet. We have to help them find a spot, get them trained, get them up, open. And then when they're successful, I'll celebrate the day the doors open and people line up and the franchisee breathes a sigh of relief. Franchisees are very excited 2 times. Number 1, when they sign the agreement, wire the funds, and they're like, oh my God, I'm really a franchisee. And then that lasts about, what do you think, an hour and a half? And then you realize, oh my God, what did I do? Now you have to get it up and open, or you have to get everything ordered and get your vans on the road and get the service business, do the marketing, all that stuff. Well, there's a lot of things that have to happen from that time. And I, back in the day, worked for companies where the CEO sat back and he's like, when the hell is this guy going to open this thing? And the franchisee was in their office saying, when the hell is this thing going to get open? Yeah, both of you have to do something now. We just started. It's not a magic trick. Let's get this going. So once they both got things going and, you're on that path for success, that's when I was like, wait a second, it became my job to contact the real estate department, contact the construction department, make sure the orders were in, make sure you have distribution done. Because if I sell a franchise, I got to make sure it's going to get open. Some people just get enthusiastic. Like I've had people try to hire me and say, come in and work for us, be our senior vice president of development, whatever. I said, you don't have distribution outside of North Carolina. How am I going to do that? What happens if I sell something in Ohio? How are they going to get the food? Oh, I didn't think of that. Right. You can't just go to Restaurant Depot. It has to be the same food, same spec. Every place you go, they have to ensure that it's available anytime you order it. And you taking up space on the shelf of the distribution center costs money. So you have to negotiate a new distribution agreement. And it just goes on from there. I got to learn how to do everything unfortunately, out of necessity, because my franchisees would call me up and say, nobody called me back from real estate. It's been a week and a half now. That's unacceptable. So I'd have to go over, find out, go to the desk, who's there, call this person, why aren't you calling them back? And then just solve all those little problems all along the way.
Yeah, I think that's part of the process that buyers really, they don't see it. They maybe don't understand it. So I want to kind of set the stage a little bit for the franchise sales process, because most candidates don't actually understand what's happening behind the scenes. So walk us through this. So first, what is the difference between a broker and an internal franchise sales team?
Sure. Two different things. Broker is a third party. The affiliation they have with the company is they have an independent referral agreement. So the way it works is kind of like a real estate agent. So if I have somebody that's a candidate that's interested in investigating franchising, then there's 800 brands that I could present to them, every kind of franchise vertical under the sun. There's I think 4,200 brands is what I heard are available for sale this year, which is absurd. I haven't heard about 95% of them. And by the way, all 95%, most likely you would lose your investment, because it's just, like I said, some guy who thought he had a great idea, paid to get his FDD and its operations manual done. Now he's a franchisor. Doesn't have anything behind it. So out of those 800 and some brands, they have to all meet those 4 criteria that I mentioned earlier. After that, now is the time that I'm interested in what franchisees are interested in as well, because we're choosing what we're going to do. We might as well pick something great. And the example I give is I had a gentleman called me up. He was already a franchisee of 4 different concepts. And he called me up and said, hey, I want to buy my daughter a franchise. Let's look at getting her a UPS store. And I said, well, we could do that. But what young lady do you know that is excited to go to work at a UPS store every day? None that I know. I mean, being a business owner, I get it. But if we're doing this, let's pick something you're going to enjoy as well. So why don't we get her on the Zoom calls with us? And then I'll find out what she liked. And of course, then we got her into a pet concept. She loved the pet concept. Now she wears the gear. She loves talking about all of that. She never touches a dog unless she wants to. She doesn't come in and wash any animals. She doesn't do any of that stuff. She has people that do that for her, but she's the face of the brand. She's making sure everything gets done, the marketing, the networking, all of that. And, that's what I say. Now that we have whittled the list down to something that will give you a chance at being successful, now let's find out what you're interested in.
So you talk about the broker network that maybe has 800 brands for you to choose from.
Right.
So you, as an independent broker, you've got this long list to choose from. So what is the process that you're going through in order to vet these franchises before you present them to your client?
So the 4 criteria. Something that has legs. I don't want something that's the hot concept right now. I have people that ask me every third call, what's the hot concept right now? You don't want the hot concept right now because it's going to fizzle out. That's not going to work. And then you have a lease that you still have to pay for. You have to have great leadership, operations, and marketing support. Then that's just table stakes to get in the game. After that, now, most times, it's people that I know, the founder, the CEO, the senior team, or at least the development team. And I know that a lot of their franchisees are already happy, satisfied, and growing. I love it when I see internal employees of the franchisor that now became franchisees because they've seen it from behind the curtain. They know what goes on back there. And now they're going out there and they're doing it on their own. So I love that. Those are the criteria that I look for. But then in addition to that, I love when you dive into the FDD for the brand. And in item 19, where they're allowed to make a financial performance representation, they actually claim profitability. I want to see operating profit or EBITDA. That is solid gold. I mean, that gives me great confidence because I know that's reported from the franchisees, that's supposedly audited. So it gives me a higher level of confidence than brands that just put in top line sales or, here's our sales broken into quartiles or however attractive they can make it look. Top line sales is meaningless. I don't care if you do $7 million a year. If it costs $6.999 to do it, that's the one time when franchisees and franchisors, there's probably more than one time. That's where franchisors and franchisees are not aligned. Franchisors make money off top line sales. Franchisees make money as to what's left on the bottom line. So it's two different things. A great example of that is, Subway. Subway did the $5 footlongs. Franchisees hated it because they weren't making money on $5 footlongs. Value meals at Burger King, Wendy's, and McDonald's. Franchisees hated it because it costs money to sell a value meal. They need to upsell when people get in there to make it worthwhile. Subway now is doing, buy 3, get 1 free. And then if you buy those 3 on their app, it's a severe discount. So franchisees, the costs on that is 64% food cost. So no one's making money on that. So franchisees get upset with that kind of stuff. Franchisees only make money on the bottom line.
Well, I'll tell you what I get upset about when I see these ads for brokers, which I see a lot of, and they're talking about, you can make $1 million in this franchise, find out how. And what they're referring to is the item 19 top line revenue.
Yeah, but everyone that looks at it thinks I'm going to put $1 million in my pocket.
Exactly.
It's not how it works.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the way the managers think too. When you're the franchise owner and franchise managers are in there and they see all this cash coming into the register, franchise managers always think the franchisee is rich. So I always recommend that franchise. Yeah, they don't understand. You put your life on the line for this thing.
Yeah,
life
I know. I ran into that a lot.
You're gambling with this thing, and hopefully working with somebody like me, I can help put the odds in your favor. But franchise managers are looking at that cash coming in thinking you get to keep it all. So I always recommend when we incentivize them, like I talked about with the KPIs, give them a little breakdown and tell them, look, this is how much it costs to run this business. I'll tell you what, we're going to bonus you off the profitability of this business because you're the manager. You're going to manage the profitability. So this is what food cost has to be. And then you say, here's $1 or here's $1 in coins. All right, here's the food cost. Here's the labor cost. Here's the overhead, the rent, the utilities, whatever. You get down. Now, with a restaurant example, you're lucky to get 15% left over. Most likely it's going to be more in the 10 range. That's why I rarely recommend franchise restaurants for an investment. But once you let them understand that, no, all this money goes out to them. I got to pay this place. I got to pay you, all that stuff. Have that explanation with them so they understand what's important for the business. But those brokers that are putting out those, they better have an asterisk next to that claim. Because I've seen those ads as well. And they'll put out, this brand costs $22,000 to make or to buy. And then you can make $59 million. The top franchisee makes 59. Come on. If you can't understand that that's not happening, then you absolutely should never be a franchisee. In fact, I have, I got a lot of videos out there online, and the guy that edits my videos, the first couple of videos he did, I put the script together. He does the video, and then he puts in, the franchise fee is $39,000. And then you can, and I was like, you cut out the middle part where I said the rest of the investment. I don't want to talk to people that think I'll pull out my credit card and charge $40,000 and now I'm a franchisee. So I went in there and purposely put in all the videos. The investment range is from this to this, all based on item 7 from the FDD. And I even have the disclaimer on there. Please look at the FDD. These numbers are all pulled from the current version, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to give these guys reasonable numbers of this is what it takes. I don't want people to be unrealistic in what they think it takes to get involved. But I also am a huge fan of franchising, and I want to let them know there's a great opportunity out there to be successful. When I started doing the videos, I had 12 views and 2 subscribers, and I think you were one of them. Thank you very much. And it was really easy to keep up with the comments. And then I started out putting out these shorter videos every day, and I still try and keep up with every comment. And there's so many people that are in there that are like, oh, this is such a wide range of investment. This information is completely useless. And I said, no, it's absolutely useful. This is the actual information. It's the least and the most it's cost someone in the last year to make this. So I'm telling you that don't come to me when I say it's from 100,000 to 300,000 investment. You say, okay, so 100,000, so I can do 3. No. What did I say? 100,000 to 300,000. So I always, if it was me, I would always go at 200,000. I always go 2/3 up. And then when I'm doing my due diligence calls to franchisees, I always want to talk to franchisees who have opened recently, because that's the most current information on how much it takes to build one of these things. What did it cost you? Did it come in on, under, or over budget? Were you expecting that much? All of that. Did it hit the numbers in the FDD that you were given?
So when we're talking about third-party brokers, whether they're independent like yourself or they're working within a network, how is that broker getting paid? So how do you get paid?
So brokers get paid from the brand. So just like I said, it's kind of like a real estate broker. So I'll show you a bunch of houses, and then eventually if you buy one of those homes, I get paid by the person who owns the home. So this is the same thing. I'll show you a bunch of brands that I think fit your criteria, and you're going to give me feedback and direction. And then we're going to find something that now you're starting to ask me questions where I don't know that level of detail. I only know all the information that the brands have given me, and then of course personal experience with some of them. But once you ask me, oh, how's the training go? And what's the second day of training? I don't know that detailed information, but that shows me that you're interested in speaking to that brand and finding out more. So then I introduce you to the subject matter expert at the brand, which is that inside salesperson. Now that person, every brand has anywhere from 4 to 7 steps to get you through the process from that first call all the way through to discovery day, which is the last step. Eventually, if you decide that you want to purchase a franchise, then that brand rewards me for bringing them a good franchisee. And I let everybody know that on my first call, because I want to let them know that's how I get paid, but I'm not incentivized to sell you anything. I'm never going to write a check out of your checkbook. I'm never going to try and convince you to do something. What my job is, as far as I could tell, is my job is to tell you everything I know about this. I could tell you about franchising in general. I could tell you about that brand in particular. I could tell you about the people that I know at that brand. And then there's other people. My favorite thing is I want to make sure people don't lose money. That's my number one goal. In fact, on my LinkedIn page, right under my name, it says, I love franchisee success. I would put, please don't lose your money. Call me first. But because that's my number one goal. I'd rather have you not be a franchisee than sign up with the wrong brand and lose your money. I don't want that to happen to you. I've seen it happen before. And it's not always the brand's fault. It's not always the person's fault. Sometimes it's just a bad fit. But then I have had people come to me from all these, online, all the social media, and come to me and say, hey, I'm going to buy this brand. And I said, some of them, I went back to 2 of these people and said, you didn't sign the paperwork yet, did you? And they're like, well, no, but I'm on step 7 of 8. I said, make any excuse to not go to that meeting. Please talk to me first.
You're in this space where you have an opportunity to stop a catastrophe from happening. So would you say that you're rare in that position of where you're going to stop somebody from making a bad mistake, whereas maybe a counterpart wearing flip-flops and cutoff shorts may just sell the franchise that pays them the best commission?
I'll tell you, I don't consider those guys my counterparts, first off. I think, when I was working for a brand and we were working with 5 different broker networks, I did it for a year solid. They kept me very busy, but I have to tell you, 95% of the brokers that I worked with were completely useless. They knew nothing. They did nothing. They would send me a name and a phone number and an email, and the information I had about the person was, this is a good guy. That tells me nothing. How do I know I'm going to meet this person's goals? How do I know what they're looking to do? I mean, this is insane. So I think there's 5% of us out there, and there's a lot of brokers. So there's a bunch of good ones. 5% of us, in my estimation, are good professional brokers. I think that it could be that I'm just a horrible salesperson because I could never sell you something I didn't believe was a good idea. I couldn't do it just as the person who I am, I couldn't put my head on the pillow. You would 100% read it on my face that I didn't believe it. I'm going to tell you what I know. And that's what the information you need. I'll give you an example. I had two gentlemen that were software engineers. They've been doing it for 15 years. And they called me up and said, I've been saving up. We've been saving up our money. Our dream is to open a restaurant. And I said, okay, have you ever opened a restaurant? Have you ever owned a restaurant before? No. Have you ever worked in a restaurant? No. Have you ever managed the team before? No. And I said, well, then you don't want to do a restaurant. No, yeah, we do. It's our dream. All our friends, whatever. I said, I'm telling you, listen, I did it for 20 years. I ran restaurants and I was really good at it. And I wouldn't do it. The reason is there's three things that franchisees look for. They look for a relatively low initial investment. They look for no headaches, and they all want to make $1 million a year. That would be an ideal situation. However, restaurants are a high initial investment, a lot of headaches. I mean, you're open all kinds of hours. You're working when other people are not working, which is not fun. And a lot of the employees, first of all, they're first-time employees at those, at fast casual places. They may show up, they may not. Worse, if you have wait staff, waiters and waitresses, the drama that comes with that, forget it, those headaches. And then the profits are slim. It doesn't fit the formula. So let's not do that. Let's work our way into my favorites, home services, pet concepts, kid concepts, senior care. And then there's very few exceptions that I'll make for wellness and fitness. So I gave my 20-minute diatribe on why they shouldn't do a restaurant, why they should do something else. And at the end, they said, yeah, but still, we want to do the restaurant. So I said, all right, well, listen, I do not help people lose money, and I'm telling you, you're going to lose your money. So I will give you one tip. We're not going to work together, but my tip is take that money and just put it in a pile and light it on fire, because it'll be faster and less painful. And of course, we never spoke again, but that's okay, because hopefully I scared them away and they won't lose their money. Just stay software engineers if that's what you want to do.
So when you're speaking with a client for the first time, how much of the FDD are you going over with them? Now, I know just from knowing you for as long as I have that you go through every FDD that for any brand that you're going to push, you go through that to make sure that it's a brand that you can align with. So are you going over that FDD with a potential franchisee, or are they just not interested?
Some franchisees aren't interested, and I explain to them why they should be interested. That being said, I never go through the FDD with the person. That's not my job. It's not my responsibility. What I do is I explain what the FDD is in general terms of what is a franchise disclosure document, tell them the important parts that they should absolutely focus on before they go back and read the whole thing front to back. Because if you just start at the front, you're going to fall asleep by page 6 the first time. So go to the exciting stuff, the stuff that's going to give you good information. And then all of the brands that I would refer them to eventually have FDD calls where they go through section by section and explain the FDD. So I want the people to understand what that call is going to be and what they should do. Because I have people that get the FDD and then they try and schedule the FDD call for the next day. I can't even read an entire FDD in one day. It took me 2 days is the fastest I've ever read one. So I want them to take it seriously. There's so many people that have never even looked at the FDD. They just sign the receipt for it and that's it. So yeah, I don't go through it with them. It's probably a liability if I would go through, because I'm not going to represent anything. The document is the representation. This is your basis for your due diligence. And then just same thing where I don't sit in on any of the calls with the brand. I don't sit in on any of their due diligence calls with franchisees, but I tell them the types of questions they should ask, the information that they would want to know. The one question I tell everybody to ask is, would you do this again? Now you know what you know. You know what you had to do to get here. Would you do it again? Is it worth it? Because honestly, if you're going to make as much or a little bit more than you would make with your money manager, that's what I would do. There's no headaches that way. The guy's just doing everything. I tell everyone what I know about franchising in general, about specific brands, about brands that I've seen where franchisees are flourishing and happy and buying more. Oh, and the other thing, when I'm looking at an FDD, I'm looking at initial investment. I'm looking at item 19 to see, hopefully they declare some kind of operating profit. But then I also want to see what are the ongoing fees, because I know you've done it too. You crack open an FDD and you're like, oh, wow, this is a cool looking brand. And oh, the marketing is really nice. And then I go in and the first thing I see is franchise fee is astronomical. Then the ongoing monthly fees, the technology fee is $750 a month. The marketing fee is a minimum of $2,000 a month. We're like, no franchisee is going to be able to cover this. They'll be lucky if what's happening is that franchisee is working for the franchisor. That's it. They're cranking up that top line sales and the franchisor is making their 6, 7, 8, 9%, whatever it is, royalty off of it, but doesn't leave enough on the bottom line for the franchisee. And that's not going to be fun. The whole goal should be going to have a good time making money.
So here's something that I'm seeing more and more on the topic of emerging brands. They're scaling fast. They're using broker networks to grow, but the support system is not really fully built. Right. So that's kind of where I start to get concerned when I'm doing my research on all these new brands. So what are you seeing in that space of emerging brands?
There's not too many emerging brands that I actually present to people because I want to see a successful track record. My number 2 criteria is I have to see leadership that's been successful doing this. I want to see that. If you just open your 3rd location and it's all exciting, yeah, sure, it's all exciting. But I'll tell you, in my experience, sometimes the first 10 franchisees are someone's brother, someone's friend. He was a frequent customer. That's how they grow because that's all they know. They're not certified franchise executives. And by the way, anybody who goes to present an opportunity for an investment of a franchise without at least going through the FranGuard course with the International Franchise Association, you're setting yourself up to get sued. You don't know what you're allowed to talk about or not allowed to talk about. So, when you have the girl that used to be at the front desk of the Cat Hotel is now your director of franchise development, and she has absolutely no experience ever doing anything like this before, just wait. You're going to get sued. I guarantee it, because I know she's going to say things that she didn't know she wasn't allowed to say. And now the franchisee is going to go under because you also didn't have that back end support, like you said, to do this. So that's a main reason I don't go after emerging brands. That being said, when I was in operations, I love emerging brands. It's fun. It's exciting for me. I get, I've had so many varied experiences in so many different departments. I get to help in every area. So it was great. And, it's always a lot of problem solving when you're doing these emerging brands, especially at the openings. And that's just fun and exciting for me. But it's also a young man's game.
And when you're in that position, you're supporting in the operations, you're that support factor of what they just paid for. So we've got brands that are sales ready, but not support ready. So what kind of risks does that create for franchisees? And how can a buyer tell the difference?
An easy one is when they say, we have 400 brands in development. All right, how many are open? 12. All right, that's a huge red flag. We call it a snow, sold but not open. That to me is an easy one. But then there's also brands that are fantastic, solid. The brand has great people in place to support it, but then it's on fire. It's, the ones that are open, there's a good number open and they're very profitable. It's this easy operation, and those get eaten up in chunks and people buy 5 and 10 packs all across the country. And that's where you get, back in the day in Orange Theory Fitness, where people made a lot of money with Orange Theory when it first came out. And they gobbled up, big territories with that. And there's a lot of examples of that, but you would miss that kind of opportunity. Like, what is it? Dave's Hot Chicken. That was a big one. It grew a whole bunch and then just sold for, I think it was $4 billion. So that was a big one. But the whole idea is getting these up and open. And if you don't have the training team, the real estate team, or at least, an outsourced real estate team, and then the operations team to support that, what are we doing? Marketing, you can't just count on digital advertising. I'll tell you what, everybody says they're a digital advertising expert. They're all lying to you. I've spent the money myself. Do not do it. Ask for proof. I want to see legitimate results. One of the things I tell my franchisees when they go to Discovery Day, when you go to Discovery Day, it's basically the company is putting on a little show for you to welcome you into the headquarters. You'll meet with the senior team. You'll chat it up. Then they'll usually parade every department that supports you through the room, which is fantastic. I always say, ask marketing, what was their favorite promotion? They love to talk about it because they created this great PDF or, this is super cool little stuffed animal thing that we did for this, whatever. They're all excited about that. And then after they get all their enthusiasm out, say, what was the result on sales? That's the only thing marketing does. That's their job. Their job is not make things that are pretty. Things that are pretty cost money. I need to make more money than the money we spent. That's the goal of a marketing promotion. So tell me, what's your most successful marketing promotion? After you ask them what their favorite was, because a lot of times it's not the same one.
Let's get into something a little controversial here. Don't get
Uh-oh.
nervous.
I am too late.
You and I have already talked about this on the back end many times, but
All right.
but it is out there and we need to talk about it. So real estate agents are licensed, financial advisors are regulated, but franchise brokers, they're not at all. So you have your CFE, which you have, and you mentioned the class that every broker you think needs to take, and not all of them are. So what we're talking about, people who control where hundreds of thousands of franchise buyers' dollars get invested. So should brokers be licensed to sell franchise opportunities? And if so, what does that look like?
I would be 100% on board with some kind of licensing or registration. There's already registration in New York and Washington State that you have to do. But all I did was fill out a form and say I'm a franchise consultant, and that's pretty much it. So I registered with the state. California now is passing, looks like it's passing, and it's, a little bit more cumbersome. I don't care. I have a huge tech stack. I'm sure I can run whatever reports that they would need me to do. But I 100% believe that you should know what you're doing if you're consulting people on how to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. I'd be happy with that selfishly, because it would flush out 75% of consultants immediately because they don't know what they're doing. And from, let's see, the inside scoop within the broker network is that the average consultant does one deal per year. It's not worth it for them to continue to do that. I'm not going to make a ton of money off of their one per deal, but 75% of them go away. That's more people that come my way. And honestly, I'm at capacity right now with my time. I'm doing 15 hours a day, which is exhausting. It's what the people deserve. They deserve you knowing what you're talking about. So I'd be happy to go and do whatever I have to do. I'd be happy if it was reasonable. I'll do whatever I have to do. But this is what I do. This is my profession. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be as professional as possible. That's why when an International Franchise Association came out with the Certified Franchise Executive course and certification, I took it immediately. So I've been certified for 20 years, I guess. And you have to renew every time. One thing I wish they would do is make an IFA membership for consultants, and then have an educational course for them, because I have to go in, I have to pay off the street fees because I'm not an IFA member. It would cost me $7,000 to do that, and I'm one person. So I have to go and pay off the street fees for all of my continuing education courses, because I'm never going to let my CFE go away. That to me is one of the most critical parts of being part of franchising. I hope everyone else takes it as seriously as I do. I know there's so many people out there that would never do it. I mean, they don't even take the FranGuard course. It's 1 8-hour day. And that can save you from lawsuits. I'm happy to thin the herd when we're calling out people who don't know what they're doing. When you have someone that claims they're a franchise expert, and then you scroll down their page and they just graduated college and they've never, if you have that and you say you're a franchise expert, but you've worked in your dad's franchise since you were 8 years old and now he's got 9 McDonald's. All right. Now you got something. But I want to see that on your LinkedIn, by the way. Little tip for you guys. But that never happens. I see one that, she was a preschool teacher for 4 months and now she's No, you can't just buy a course and become a franchise expert. You can try and learn all you can, but without a certain amount of experience on top of that, you don't know what you're doing. You could talk all you want, because all you're going from is the marketing that the brands send you. And by the way, there's horrible brands that have great marketing because they're trying to sell franchises.
So let's bring this back to the person that's listening to this right now. So they're considering a franchise. They may or may not talk to a broker. What should they be doing first?
I would say, number one, I wouldn't do this without a broker. It doesn't cost anything to work with me. And you want to know what I know. I've been doing this a very long time. So I would 100% go with a broker. But I would also vet that broker. LinkedIn is a perfect place to do it. Go in and see where they worked and what they've done. After that, then just like I said, I'm going to go through and we're going to have a bunch of conversations and we're just going to get to know each other. I like to keep things very casual because I want to know who the people are as a people. I want this to fit into their life and the life they want. I don't want them to have to do something that they don't like to do just to put food on the table. It's not fun. And there's a lot of ways you can make money. Why not make money doing something that you also enjoy? then when you go out and talk about it and you wear the gear everywhere you go and bring it up in every elevator, and it's going to be fun. They'll see that enthusiasm. It'll make people want to be a client. By the way, I keep it very casual like this. It's funny. When I was in college, I thought I'm going to come out and wear a suit and tie and I'm going to be very impressive and I'm going to look super spiffy. And then once I was in the suit and tie for so long, I was like, I can't wait to just wear a t-shirt and wear my own gear. The only logo I'm going to wear is my own logo, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Now look at you.
Yep. And now I did it. And it's the most free I've ever felt owning your own business while working 80 hours a week. I hear that. Anticipate enjoying working this hard as much as I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're building something that's for yourself. You're not making somebody else another $500,000.
Exactly. It's, all the effort that I put into it, I get to realize. The other thing is it's grown so much faster than I expected it to. Owning a business, you're going to grow because there's things that you don't know. And you're going to have to do things that are uncomfortable. Even doing this, I've been in franchise development for 20 years. I had to do things that I didn't understand. I became very good at huge technology stacks where I had to outsource people and hire third parties to train me on it and all this kind of stuff. And there were growth moments in that. But now my business is growing so much that I'm at capacity. So now when people come in, I have someone that handles my international deals for me because frankly, they're better at international than I am. I've done a lot of international, but they've done more than I have. So I have to be able to farm that out to other people and work with other brokers. So now I brought people onto my team. So it's not something I was planning, and my business is growing more than I thought it would. But now I'm also building something that eventually I can sell to someone else.
So I think, that's all we have for today's podcast. I want to thank you for taking time out of your, I know, very busy schedule to talk about franchise brokers and their role in the industry. So where can my followers find you? I know you have way more followers and subscribers than I do, but where can they find you?
Let's see, everywhere, just about every social media, it's Franchisee first. You can't miss this head. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, Dan Collins, CFE. You can email me, Dan at franchisee first, the number one, stadvisors.com. And I give everybody, it doesn't cost anything to work with me. I set up free meetings with everyone. So come in, don't make a mistake, and buy a franchise without talking to me, please.
All right. Well, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you.
Oh, it's been a great time. Thanks.
Here's the reality. Franchise sales is a system. And like any system, it works exactly the way it was designed to work. The problem is, most buyers don't understand that design until they're already committed. And by then, their leverage is gone. That's why conversations like this matter. Not to criticize, but to make the process visible and more transparent. Because when you can see how something works, you can make better decisions inside it. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more conversations like this. Here at Franchise Reality Check, we don't do sales pitches. We do franchise facts. Now for the legal stuff. This content is for educational and informational purposes only. It reflects opinion and commentary based on industry experience and publicly available information. It is not legal, financial, or investment advice. Always conduct your own due diligence before making any franchise investment decision.